All right, it is Thursday, April 13th, and today I am going to go through the last two play-in games as well as preview the first round of the NBA playoffs. But first, I wanted to talk about the games from the last two nights. We cashed that Minnesota plus 8.5 ticket. There was really never any doubt about it to me. Even when the Wolves were struggling to score at the end of regulation, I had no fear. Even when the game went into overtime, that 8.5 was just a really secure bet. It felt like even if everything goes wrong, we're still going to stay within that number. The Lakers got the win though, and I wasn't too surprised about that. I expected them to find a way to win the game some way, somehow. Of course, the Lakers get all the foul calls. That's just how it goes when you're betting on a team that's going up against the Lakers. I'll get into how I feel about the Lakers when I preview the Lakers Memphis series. But the Atlanta Hawks came out and surprised me against the Miami Heat. And the Miami Heat, that's just who they've been this season. They have a good game and then they have a bad game, then they follow it up with a good game. So I shouldn't have been too surprised. And that's why they've been the worst team against the spread this season in the NBA. And that's why I don't have a play on that game coming up tomorrow against the Bulls. In theory, you would want to back Chicago again on the road because they have been good on the road and they've been covering as underdogs since acquiring Patrick Beverly. Patrick Beverly and Caruso give them a defensive identity, and they have guys who can score the basketball at a high clip. Levine and DeRozan. They're going to have better scores than Miami had. But like I said, Miami will follow up a bad game with a good game, and the fact that they started playing better in the second half, I could see the momentum carrying over into this game because they've had to think about it for a while. So I won't be touching that game. The game the Bulls had against Toronto was fun. Toronto probably should have won that game, but they just missed so many free throws. Shout out to DeMar DeRozan's daughter on that one. Levine was great, especially in that third quarter, and ultimately the Raptors looked like they didn't mind going to Cancun early. Nick Nurse is definitely out of there. Interested to see where he ends up. Now, the OKC New Orleans game was another fun one. SGA and Ingram are both so tough. Both guys just can't be stopped. Two young teams that I enjoy watching play. Obviously, the Pelicans fell short of expectations this year. Can't lose that game at home. Even without Zion, you can't lose that game at home. They were like 6-point home favorites. I mean, especially to a young team like OKC, but OKC clearly just wanted it more. They were the smaller team, but they were the tougher team. And they've been Cash's road dogs for like 2 years straight now. Anybody that's been following me on Twitter, you know we cash with OKC often, especially as road dogs. They get those inflated lines as a road underdog, and then they just cover them. I couldn't pull the trigger on that last game because New Orleans ended the season so strong, and I was expecting an uptick in their performance, but Oklahoma City ended up getting it done, and I'm glad I didn't end up touching that New Orleans game. But that leads me up to the game on Friday between OKC and Minnesota. I still have some notes to go through before I make this play official, but the early look is definitely the Thunder plus 5.5. When I look at the Timberwolves and think how depleted they are without Naj Reid and McDaniels, coupled with how bad they've been as favorites at home, like the Wolves at home, they're like 8-17 as home favorites this year. It's just deplorable. They just don't get the job done. When there's any expectations on them at home, they're just not going to get it done. They don't play too well in that arena for whatever reason. And Gobert is back. Rudy Gobert will be in the lineup, but he can easily get exposed in switches. SGA is going to take him to town, and we know Kyle Anderson, slow-mo, he's not going to be too pleased with having Rudy Gobert back out there on the court. It's just bad vibes. It's not the same vibes they had when they were going with their back against the wall at the Lakers. So, Edwards has this injury. It's going to be nagging him, and they need him to be playing his best ball against OKC because OKC is just playing with nothing to lose, and that's a very dangerous type of team to play against. SGA will be the best player on the court most likely, and I just think OKC is going to want it more. Minnesota, they just strike me as another team that wouldn't mind going to Cancun early at this point. Conley was great for us against the Lakers, but to expect him to do that in back-to-back games at this age and stage of his career is just asking way too much out of him, in my opinion. So OKC plus 5.5 is definitely the heavy lean that will probably end up becoming official tomorrow. And this is just a snapshot of how I prognosticate professional sports. We rode with the Wolves as overinflated road dogs with their back against the wall, ready to rally together at Lakers, and we fade them as home favorites with heavy expectations on them. This is just how it goes. Like, no fanboy shit. It's just pure analysis, and And once again, make sure to follow me on Twitter and Instagram so you can turn notifications on and find the official plays at the best of the number right away once I put them out. Pivoting off of that, I think it's time to do a quick preview of the first round of the playoffs. In the Eastern Conference, obviously the Celtics are going to blitz the Hawks. I wouldn't be surprised if game one was sort of close just because the Hawks are coming in with that momentum from the play-in, and they look good in that game, honestly. And then, maybe they could make that a little interesting, but game two, I think is just going to be a blowout. Like maybe game one you catch Boston a little rusty or something, but game two I could see being a blowout. I can also see Boston covering as a road favorite at Atlanta. They did that earlier this year in a game where I had Atlanta as a home dog and they couldn't get the job done. It's just not the same Atlanta team that just always covered those home dog numbers that they did the past few seasons. They just haven't been doing that lately, but I think people have that in mind, so they're just going to autoplay that home underdog in that desperation spot, and they're kind of used to Atlanta normally being good there, but I wouldn't just automatically play that. There may be an opportunity, though. You may end up seeing me on that side. It just depends. I'm expecting a gentleman's sweep in this series, to be honest. I wouldn't be surprised if it ended in 4, but I'm going to say 5, just showing a little respect. The Milwaukee Bucks are going to crush whoever they play in that 1-8 matchup, and barring injury, that could be a gentleman's sweep as well. Uh, a sweep against Chicago, I feel like they just have so much heart. They could win a game just like they did last year against the Bucks. A sweep against Miami. Miami does have guys who have been to war against the Bucks before, so they know the Bucks very well. So would the Bucks sweep Miami? Maybe the Bucks don't get a sweep against either of them, but they could easily get a gentleman's sweep against both of them. Sixers Nets is another series that probably doesn't go the distance. Obviously, Brooklyn has struggled since trading Katie and Kyrie. They're under 500. Post trade, they've been under 500. They're just not going to have enough to really win this series, but they could maybe make it a little interesting if for no other reason than Harden pulling his typical choke jobs, and Embiid's body holding up is always a concern. The Cavs Knicks series is probably the best one out east. I think people are giving the Knicks a real shot to win as a dog, but I wouldn't quite go there. As much as I love Brunson, the Cavs do have the best defense in the NBA, and Mitchell is going to show up big when it matters. I do think Knicks plus 5.5 is an interesting look game one. I'm going to have to dive into it more before betting it or making it official, but all in all, I do expect the top 4 seeds to make it to the second round with relative ease out east. Now in the West, it's a little more complicated. Denver's going to be facing the Wolves or the Thunder, and either one the Nuggets will dispose of. Those series will be pretty short. The Nuggets just have too much offensive firepower. The Suns get the Clippers without Paul George for possibly the whole series, and I think the Suns roll them. Game one might even be a play on the Suns considering how dominant they were last year to start series against New Orleans and Dallas. Just something to think about if you're betting that game and you're thinking, oh, the Clippers are getting a ton of points, the Clippers should keep it close. Like that line could easily be a trap line where Phoenix covers that line. But the Sacramento Kings, moving on to them, they worked their asses off this year, and in return, they were rewarded with the Golden State Warriors in the first round. I think this is going to be the funnest series to watch just from an entertainment perspective. Obviously, I'm from the Bay Area, so getting to see that NorCal rivalry is always fun. We've never gotten it before. We've gotten it in the regular season, but for the Kings to be this good, it just makes it super entertaining. It's going to be great. And the offensive basketball we're going to be seeing is just going to be so dynamic. So many dribble handoffs, so many off-ball screens, a ton of threes, and a ton of pace. I see people kind of giving Sacramento a shot to win it. And although I wouldn't go that far, I do think they can make it interesting. I'll say Dubs in 6 in a series that we are going to wish would never have to end. It's just going to be fun, entertaining basketball. Definitely going to be the funnest series to watch. Now, the last series to cover is the one I want to dive into the most. I saved the best for last, and that's the Memphis Grizzlies hosting the Los Angeles Lakers. Memphis is currently minus 130 to win the series, and the Lakers are plus 108. That is pretty strong odds for the Lakers considering they needed OT to win a play-in game and they were just barely over 500 for the year. This is a 7th seed, and I think this series line is just a reflection of how much people are loving LeBron, AD, and these Lakers right now. And I got to tell you, I just don't see it. Memphis is an amazing home team, winning and covering at a very high rate. They also cover first halves at a high rate, coming out firing. I'm going to be on Memphis game one because I just love that angle. And considering how often LeBron uses game ones as a feel out game in series, I just think that strengthens this point. If you guys remember in the bubble, LeBron lost game one in round one to the Portland Trailblazers. He lost game one in round two to the Houston Rockets. He lost game one to the Denver Nuggets in round three. And he ended up winning game one in the finals, but that was because the Miami Heat were super banged up. The Miami Heat actually had a big lead to start the game. And then when the Lakers went to the playoffs the next year against the Suns, I think that was a 2-7 matchup. Or was it a 1-8? Yeah, I want to say it was a 2-7 matchup the next year. The Lakers got crushed in game one at Phoenix. So, in saying that, I wouldn't be surprised if game one was a smackdown. And then I could see game two being a little tighter. I also wouldn't be surprised. I also wouldn't be surprised if the Lakers were extremely competent at home. They play really well at home. Even if they don't cover as a home favorite, they will find a way to end up winning at least one of those two home games, game three and four. They're going to win. All in all, I'll say Memphis in seven because they have home court, and I think the miles are going to be adding up on Bron, but especially on Davis. Like Anthony Davis is their most important player. I don't know if people really realize that or not, but defensively he's their most important player, and offensively he is too because in the half court they just run everything. They run everything through Anthony Davis. Like maybe in the fourth quarter, late in games, you get the LeBron pick and rolls and stuff like that. He kicked it out to Schroeder for that three, but in the half court, first three quarters of the game, they're feeding the ball to AD and they're letting him cook. So I got Memphis winning that series. And, just to recap, advancing in the playoffs out west, I got Denver, Memphis, Phoenix, and Golden State. And out east, I got Milwaukee, Boston, Philly, and Cleveland. That'll be all for today. Once again, keep checking me out on Twitter and Instagram for the plays. I might end up on Oklahoma City. Very likely I end up on Oklahoma City tomorrow. Like, comment, and subscribe. Share the videos. Until next time, peace.